I think it would be a massive shame to lose privateers from World Cups, though. I think I've never raced a World Cup, but it seems like a lot of people say that's how you learn to race World Cups, is by racing World Cups.
Ben, another one that seems to be fairly strong, and I guess has been fairly strong since like the Warner Brothers Discovery takeover of the series, is some sort of consolidation of teams, like less teams at the races, less riders at the races, which does make sense. Like that, you know, pretty much all the venues we go to, we don't really fit in anymore. Like there's not enough space. Some of the privateer pits especially end up being miles away from the actual track and makes everything pretty hard. The tracks are getting heavily hammered. Like I think there was nearly 200 elite males starting in Leogang, which is, you know, it's big numbers, and it's hard to manage both the track degradation and hard to manage as a sport. And like we say, any red flags can cause days to not fit anymore, not work. So I kind of get that. And I guess the flip side of that, the challenge is that, you know, it's going to make it harder for privateers, or we're going to lose that like privateer spirit, you know, the ability for riders to come in and perform at the very top level and have this kind of underdog story, which, you know, as fans of the sport, we all love. Like they're the sort of stories that will often feature heavily in your yearbooks. Like, you know, we're seeing riders even this year, like Anna Newkirk, Lockie Stevens, McNabb, riders on very small teams with very, very small budgets that potentially wouldn't be there if we have to cut down on teams. I don't quite know how it would work, but yeah, keen to hear your thoughts. Right, it's a double-edged sword. I see the need to reduce the number of people there, but I also, as a fan, like would be sad to lose some of those like underdog stories from the sport.
Yeah, I think agree on both sides of that. Like that, you know, the tracks do get a lot of use and a lot of tyres down them at the minute. But yeah, it's I think privateers are kind of like such a big part of downhill, and it's not like a lot of sports where you need to be on a big team to be able to do well. Like you said with Lucky, like I think I read that it's his third ever World Cup finals, and he's third place. So in the future system, he could potentially not be there because of points or teams and that sort of stuff, which I think it would then make the sport a bit repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
If there's only the same people up there because they're more consistent. But yeah, I guess it depends how it actually is brought in, if it's brought in, and like how it would work, and if there's a way of stepping up into the World Cup scene. And I don't know, maybe without semi-finals, that's fewer tyres on the track. Maybe there's just different ways of going about the race weekend to keep the track in better shape, in better condition. I think it would be a massive shame to lose privateers from World Cups, though. I think I've never raced a World Cup, but it seems like a lot of people say that's how you learn to race World Cups, is by racing World Cups.
Yeah, and I guess though, and James, keen to hear your thoughts on this, but maybe that is because of the fact that there hasn't been much of a pathway through, and because you have been able to enter World Cups basically from the back of a van just showing up to an extent, like that's what people have always done. So I kind of feel like there's never been a massive need or driver to create series underneath the World Cup to help people make that progression. Like it's a big gap, I think, from certainly in the UK, from a national to then go to a World Cup. But do you think, I guess it depends what comes first. Like, do we need to build the series in between before people start getting pushed out of World Cups, or do you have to push people out of World Cups for the series to be created, kind of thing? Like it's a bit of a chicken and egg one, I guess.
I mean, it'd be a bit brutal if some takes that approach, really push everyone out and let them sort of fester for a while before someone hopefully starts another series. But I don't think they'll do that. I hope not. It's a funny one because 10 or so years ago, there kind of was a pathway, even though it was kind of even easier to race World Cups then. Not that it's easy to race World Cups now. But it was maybe as a privateer, it was, it's got more and more professional now. So, more and more teams. 10 or 15 years ago, there were fewer teams. It was probably a little bit more of a level playing field for people going in as a privateer. But there was actually I think there was a kind of unofficial pathway to World Cups then as well. So there were really strong national series and like regional and national series everywhere. And in between those, there were, at least in Europe, there were sort of really well-attended European races, like the IXS Cups and the Maxis Cups. And then there were sort of national series that acted as unofficial pathways as well. There'd be some... I used to go to some of the races with some friends. Like there'd be French Cups and Swiss Cups and things where you'd just get all the World Cup riders or hopefuls would turn up, and those would be this kind of stepping stones, I think. And they'd be point scoring races. So then, if you did well, you could get into the World Cups. But a lot of that's kind of in the last however many years. I think a lot of that's kind of dropped off a bit. There are obviously still European races. I'm not sure as many people go to them. And then on the national scene, there's definitely way fewer events and probably smaller attendance. So, which I think the organisers are well aware of, and they're probably hoping to generate something that I think it's kind of just a gap in the growth of the sport, where it's gone from this big sort of participant sport into everyone's participating in enduro races and just going riding, and then they've got to create this more professional pathway now. Like you said.
Yeah. And I guess you can incentivize attendance at those European and national events and North America, all these areas by like the way the points infrastructure works and the way you need to get points to go to World Cups. Like if all that had a rethink and a reshuffle that kind of made riders do a bit more of that stuff, it would drive the growth of those races and series and the profile of them, and everything comes up together. It's not an easy one to solve. Hey, like I wouldn't want to be the people trying to make that decision.
No, I think something that a lot of people forget or don't know, we were talking about this the other day, is I think a lot of people who follow the sport at the moment, they know who Chris Ball is, and he's the guy who's kind of at the top of the organisation running all the World Cups, and obviously what was ESO Sports, and that's just been dissolved and become part of Warner Brothers Discovery now. They see him for that, but he's got such a deep history in the sport from back when I was a junior racing. He was the kind of really core elite racer group that I really looked up to, who'd go out racing and live out of a van and be really dedicated to racing national and World Cup scene. From that to starting and running the Enduro World Series, and then obviously in between that, being the UCI technical delegate, and then starting his own series with Enduro, doing a lot for that, and then now doing this. I think people either don't know that or we've forgotten it a little bit, and we just see him at the top of Warner Bros now. Yeah. But in there's a really core rider who understands every sort of level of the scene, from the privateer and juniors all the way up to the pro level. So I think they only want to do good stuff, probably. And they get a lot of stick online. Like you said, I think just the communication or information void leaves people just to speculate and fill in, saying that they're just trying to kill everything, but they're blatantly not. So I think with the privateer,
with an 8-year deal, you'd hope not, right? It's not in their vested interest to knock the sport over in a couple of years and be sat with something that doesn't work for the remaining 6. So they wouldn't. I wouldn't have thought you'd sign an 8-year deal if you didn't really want to move things forward in a good way.